guys together. I want to teach. So it's amazing that you could do this. So I'll go on to read your bio, and then we can officially kick off. Damilola Solesi is a visionary animation director and producer dedicated to transforming African storytelling into a global competitive industry. As the CEO of SMIDS Animation Studios, she has built a top-tier powerhouse, yes, if I do say so myself, and made history as the first Nigerian studio to become a finalist at the prestigious Annecy International Animation Film Festival. With a background in computer science and entrepreneurial management, Damilola has spent over a decade steering her studio through global innovation and acclaimed productions like Boxed. She's a respected global authority, and she has served as a juror for the International Emmy Awards and is a recipient of the USADF Award and the Mandela Washington Fellowship. She's committed to bridging the gap between artistic vision and a commercial scale, ensuring that African stories are backed by sustainable and profitable business models. Again, this is a very summarized version of what Dami is and will still be, right? So again, summarize. Adrian, thanks for sharing that. So yes, thank you so much, Dami, for joining us. You're welcome, and I'll let you kick off because this is already live on YouTube as well. So I'll let you kick off, and then as others join, we'll just continue.
Let me start my stream. Thanks again for having me, and thanks for that lovely introduction. So I'll just share my screen now. I don't know if you can see my screen. Okay, fantastic. So hello everyone, and thank you for having me. As I've been introduced, my name is Damilola Solesi, and I run SMIDS Animation Studio, a multi-award winning animation studio based here in Lagos, Nigeria. And we've been doing this for 15 years. Can you imagine running the animation studio for 15 years? Last November was 15 years since we started the studio, and we're very excited. So today I'll be sharing on my journey in the animation industry, particularly, and also how to shift from, the artist mindset to the entrepreneurial mindset to run a business sustainably for 15 years. We have a team of 20. Yes, I love being an artist. I love creating. But for you to be able to do that, there are just certain things you have to put in place structurally, and just certain ways you have to, think about your business and your approach that is more sustainable. I think that's the key word for an artist is sustainability, and ensuring that, how do I ensure that I'm able to do what I love again tomorrow? And, every creative business is different, but particularly animation, which is very capital intensive, that has to be at the forefront of everything you're thinking about. That whatever projects are in front of me, how am I able to do them effectively and then do them sustainably? So to share a bit, so I was talking about my journey to SMIDS. And as a child, I'll just go from the beginning. I've always been passionate about cartoons. I was one of those kids that was always watching cartoons and just never stopped. I still watch cartoons to today. I don't think there's a day that goes by that I do not watch, an animated project. I think it's something that has fueled my creativity, and the fact that I'm also still in this space is amazing. And I always encourage everyone to watch cartoons because they're great. From a very young age, I actually knew I wanted to do animation. In fact, I made that decision when I was in SS2 quite early. I'd seen all the Disney princesses when I was a child. I'd watched all the Saturday cartoons. And even before then, I always said I wanted to be a gamer. But it wasn't until SS2 when I saw Pixar, the first Pixar movie, Toy Story. And for one reason, I stayed till the end and I saw the names scrolling by. And I was like, wow, people actually made this for a living. I think that was the first time it ever clicked to me. It wasn't when I was watching Tom and Jerry. It wasn't when I was watching all those other cartoons I'd watched as a child. It was just like watching this particular Pixar film. And I was like, wow, people actually did this for a living. And that started this very long journey into the industry. As I was about getting into SS3, I wanted to study animation in university, but animation isn't studied as a degree level in Nigeria. Till today, sadly, there's still nowhere you can learn animation as a degree program. So the industry is largely self-taught, which also brings in another layer of challenge. I feel like our journey will have been shortened, and the pace will have been faster, and will have moved even much more if there was that educational piece of the journey. But again, and lots of conversations are going on with institutions and governments and the likes to figure out how we can make that happen, because that's needed, for the industry. So right straight out of school, I started the studio without, there was no plan, there was nothing. It was just passion. It was just like, I want to start the studio. I just felt that if I had gone to corporate Nigeria, it would take me such a long time to come back to doing what I wanted to do. And I felt I was young, I had the passion and the energy. How hard would it be to make cartoons all day? So I thought, but it was a lot. 15 years ago, if you mention animation, you just saw blank faces. People just didn't understand, what you were talking about. Now, fast forward now, people understand when you see animation, when you talk about the fact that you want to make a film, a project, whatever it is you want to do, people have a picture of what it is. Back then, they didn't understand what we're doing. So redefining what our value and proposition was going to be was really hard, trying to ensure that we're able to sell a skill, that we didn't sell our skill marketably enough so that we could at least earn from it was a challenge. And even just figuring out the business model as a whole. And I think very quickly, as soon as we got into the space, we figured out that, it's not all fun and games. It's not just a bunch of artists hanging out and just doing what they love. We found out that very quickly, animation is capital intensive. The hardware you require, yes, things have changed in the industry over the years now, but back then, as a 3D animator, you were talking of high-end computers, you're talking about rendering, which took a lot of time and required a lot of capacity. The softwares were expensive. So it was just a very capital-intensive space, and just figuring out how do you ensure that this is sustainable enough for us. Very quickly, we were able to start servicing clients. It was hard to convince those clients at the very start. We started with NGOs and then moved into corporate, but then it was always every time like trying to convince them that you can do what you say you can do, because it was just something that they haven't heard of. And the few that have used animation in some of their projects have had to, outsource that to countries like South Africa and etc. And they didn't feel like, it could be delivered here in the country. So I'd mentioned earlier about SMIDS. We're a multi-award winning animation studio, both 2D and 3D. I'm a 3D animator, but the studio is largely 3D now. And primarily we're a service-based studio. And I'll be talking about that, the differences, in how you can earn within this industry and what your path will be, because depending on the path you choose, the steps and how you structure your business is very different. Again, a few of our awards. So we released a short film a few years ago called Hadu. Hadu has now been to 2 years ago. It has now been to 30 plus festivals and has won Best Animation in 8 of those festivals. We're very excited about the project. Now it's about to be turned into a series. We're very excited about that. We just got accepted into an accelerator soon to be announced, and we're very excited for the opportunity. So we say we're an end-to-end animation partner. So from script all the way to post, we're able to again work with multiple producers and partners around the world to be able to make that happen. And we've been doing that for a number of years. So a few of our projects, I just mentioned Hadu just now, which is our award-winning short film that is now being made into a series. We have Keko, which is our latest baby, and Keko Africa, which means Poet for Learn Africa. It's currently on YouTube, and we're teaching African history to kids. There's just a lot of history that we don't know. Even I myself, I was just finding out in my 30s about, things like Timbuktu, things like Mali Empire and the likes. And I was like, we needed to make a show about this. And, history for those of us here in Nigeria was taken out of schools a while back. I believe it's back now. I'm not sure how fully back it is, but the government has announced that it's coming back. But again, even the history I was taught did not include any of these really great stories. And I believe that as Africans, we need to know who we are as a people, how great we are as a people, what we've done, so that we can build upon this knowledge and even create a better future for ourselves. So it's been exciting. Just 2 months in, we have over 70,000 views so far and counting. So we're very excited about the project and where it's going with this. 2 years ago, we had released a series of picture books on Keko rather, and we knew that we had something on our hands. Just seeing the reaction of kids, to the IP. So we're very excited to be able to bring this to animation and to YouTube specifically. Kanji is our latest short film that we just released last year. It's currently going through festivals, and so hopefully we'll see it across festivals in time soon. We're very excited about that. And then this is our latest short film that we're actually working on right now. It's called Ashanam. Ashanam means manatees. The West African manatees, which are the characters we see up here, are critically endangered. And we're currently making a short film with NILF in South Africa and National Geographic to tell this documentary short about this and just bring light to the plight of these animals. In the Florida manatees were critically endangered a few years ago, and they were made a protected class, and now the populations have now abound. We believe that the same thing can happen for the West African manatees. It will be really great that these animals, so gentle, so beautiful, so loving creatures, do not go extinct, but that we're able to raise awareness around, what is going on as regards of pollution and things like that, overfishing, overconsumption, and then pollution and the likes, and how we can truly save these gentle giants, as I call them. So let's just get right into the meat of today's topic, which is this myth about being a starving artist. Many times, and that's where some of this ideology comes from, whereby you're trying to think about the work that you do and how you can really truly create value in this world. It's important for creatives to understand that you can't authentically sell your artwork at the same time also build business skills required to create sustainable careers. And one of the things that that limits us, that mindset that limits us, is that starving artist mindset, is ensuring that we're not underpricing the value of our work. We're ensuring that when it comes to contracts, we're being fairly treated, equitably treated. When it comes to conversations around money, that we're not uncomfortable, about conversations around money, that we know that the price for our freedom, the price for our creativity is actually being fairly paid for the services that we offer. And this should not be any guilt around financial success. And you can have both creative success and financial success of both projects. And that's very key and center to everything that you're doing. Yes, I understand that in the animation space, there are very different parts depending on how you want to go. You can be a freelancer doing projects, from the comfort of your home, working remotely, and with studios around the world, doing whatever it is that you do, and providing value on different projects around the world. You can also decide to set up a team between you and a few people that you know, a few friends, and set up a team. You can do that way. That's also a different path. And depending on the path you take, there's a different structure for each of them. So talent is definitely not enough when it comes to structuring yourself as a business in animation. So there is the skill of animation, there's the talent of animation, and there's also the business of animation. So there are two completely different things, and you need each of them need both of it. Each of them need both of them to be able to work effectively. It's not one against the other. It's both of them working together in harmony to ensure that you're building and creating value. From I mentioned all the cartoons that I've watched, and I'm sure there are cartoons you're also watching, whether it's anime, whether it's cartoons, whether it's animated films that you watch in cinema. For us, we need to appreciate artistry and the brilliance of those projects. There's a lot that goes into it beyond just the talent. There's the marketing, there's the business side, there's the distribution, there's even the putting together the finances of a project. Sometimes you hear some of these big budget films, 200 million, and somebody is coming together, a producer is coming together, an executive producer is coming together to ensure that the financing of that project is right, not just to be able to deliver that project, to be able to create and deliver that project, but to ensure that they have a return on that investment for whoever the parties involved in investing in such a project. So it's a whole value chain, and it's important that as creators that we're aware of this value chain of whatever sector or industry we are in, and understand how we can play within that sector is very key. So I mentioned earlier that animation requires a lot of tools, it requires teams. So your standard Pixar film, Disney film has almost 300 plus people working on those projects. So that's a lot of people. There's technology, there's also time. So what a Pixar film typically takes about 2 to 3 years from start to finish, sometimes even longer if it stays longer in pre-development. So it does take time. So you cannot do that without proper funding, without proper structure. And talent alone is impossible for you to have that, for you to reach your full potential. So again, it's that same mindset of monetization isn't selling out, but it's buying you creative freedom to ensure that you're able to, get your project to its full potential. That's really key. So sorry, my slides. Okay, next slide is understanding creative assets. So I mentioned that there are different paths when it comes to animation business, and depending on the path you're in, determines how you will structure your business for that. So there's IP. So I mentioned a few of our IPs that we are working on now. I mentioned Hadu, I mentioned Keko, and the likes, but it's also service work. So the bulk of the work that we do at SMIDS actually service work. So we work for other clients, we work for producers, independent producers, and producers around the world to produce their own IPs. So they pay us for that service. That's very that's also a way very lucrative to ensure that whatever service you offer, you're able to get returns from it. And there's also IP. So there's different parts. So when it comes to service work you're creating for a client, they will pay you, they definitely own the IP, and then you earn, once you completed the project, or depending on how your project is structured. If you're an IP owner, which is a different, ball game, you have to create your own ideas. You own the rights clearly, and then you control how it's used, and then you can earn on it multiple times. So again, it's depending on what path you want to do, and you can do both. Like for us, we're doing both. We have some of our IPs that are in the market and that we're trying to push one way or the other. But at the same time, we also have service work that we are currently building. I'd mentioned earlier about Hadu and Keko. With Hadu, the pathway was very different. We knew that we wanted to do this big project, but again, when it comes to animation, it's about finding those funds. And many times, for a producer like myself, who's in Nigeria, there's very limited funds locally for us to be able to produce such projects on this scale. So we felt that we needed an MVP, so a minimal viable product, to take to the market and say, see, this is what we're trying to do. And we are surprised by the feedback that we got from this project. Yes, we wanted it to do well, but we did not expect that we're going to get into 30 plus festivals and win best animation in 8 of those festivals. So that alone is a calling card for us. So now we're now pitching the series. It's such an easy conversation. I've been pitching projects now since 2008, I believe 2007. I've been pitching projects. This is the easiest it has ever been for us to pitch a project, because you're coming with receipts. You're not just coming with, I have this idea. This is going to be the best project since sliced bread. No, we're coming with receipts. We're coming with the fact that this has been received globally. And because of that, we've been able to accelerate the process of pre-development. Yes, generally, currently, the animation industry has been a bit on a slowdown for the last 2-3 years because of quite a number of issues. The slowdown in streamers purchasing, there's also slowdown in ticket sales, and quite a number of mechanics that the animation industry is having to re-engineer. So the animation industry is having to re-engineer itself right now globally. But notwithstanding, I believe there's an opportunity for us as creators on the continent, particularly because there's just not a lot of content out there. In fact, there's little to nothing out there when it comes to animated content, either for kids or even for adults or even online. It's just very little. And I believe that the ecosystem is ripe for us to start to create content. What is lacking right now is that business mindset to say, yes, we have amazing creative talent, we have amazing writers, amazing artists, amazing animators on the continent. And the last few years, everyone has really stepped up their game when it comes to talent, which is the reason why our talents are working on multiple international projects around the world. But now is now the time for us to be able to structure ourselves, organize ourselves into a business, and say, how do we create value from this opportunity? How do we ensure that we have this idea, we have this IP? How do we ensure that we're able to get the funds that we need around this project? And how we're ensuring that we're also able to deliver that IP to the market and get a return for the investors. So that's where it is about that value chain of animations from end to end, and that's the stage that the industry is in currently. And what I encourage people within the space is, it's great that we've developed ourselves creatively all these years. More importantly, we now need business knowledge. We need business acumen. So it's either you're going to get that business acumen for yourself to really understand the value chain for animation business, or you're going to partner with people who already have this inclination already, who are already thinking more right brain, who are thinking the numbers, who are thinking, how do we solve for distribution? How do we solve for marketing? How do we ensure that we put 2 naira into this project, we can get 10 naira at the end, pay back the investors, and also have enough reserve to do multiple projects in the future. So that's the mindset and the thinking that the industry needs currently. So monetization. So this just segues right into monetization, which is some of the things that we're talking about. How do we create monetization models that protect our creativity, which is key. And there are many monetization models out there. Many monetization models. Is finding out what monetization model works best for your project and what monetization model works best for the season and the trends that are currently happening within the industry right now. I'll go back and forth within between what is going on in the industry at the macro level and also what is going on, on the continent and even in Nigeria specifically. So I mentioned earlier about common monetization methods in animation. One of them is service work, which I mentioned earlier. So whether it's doing commercial adverts or commission-based projects or just doing client-based projects in general. And there's licensing and distribution. There's also education, merchandising, and digital platforms. Again, depending on your project and who your target audience is. So what I always tell creators is you have to start with the end. Many times creators love to create for themselves, which is great. Stay true to yourself, be passionate about that your inner fire and your inner voice and your authenticity, which is great. But at the end of the day, if it's a business, it's about the audience and it's about what does the audience want and how do they want that product now. So some IPs, which I mentioned a few of the projects that we're already working on, some of them went through the festival route. Some of our IPs are on YouTube. Some of our IPs are going directly to TV. Some of our IPs we're looking for streaming platforms, partners for. So it really depends on the IP and what you see the potential of the IP. So there's the story itself. So there's the project that you want to make. There's the markets out there. So all these different markets I've talked about. And then there's the value of your IP. And many as a creative, you have to be able to see it objectively and say, based on all the information I know about the industry, where do I see this project going? Honestly. So this is not bluff. This is not overhyping yourself. This is being brutally honest with yourself and saying, what is the best possible pathway? What's the best possible market for this particular IP that I have? And how can I get that, to the market, which is key. Once you've been able to discover that, because without that, it's just very hard for you to be able to figure out your financing, to figure out the model in which you're going to produce that content, and also figure out how you're going to get that model to the market. So there's different strategies. The first one is what I would call like the broadcaster route. In Africa specifically, that route is a big challenge because of the models that, especially in Nigeria specifically, that is one whereby broadcasters don't buy content in a sense. So there's that model. The second model would be self-distribution. So self-distribution, I classify anything a creator does to produce his content on his own and distribute on his own using digital platform as self-distribution. So are you distributing on social media, on YouTube, on TikTok, things like that? That's self-distribution. And then you have the last one whereby you're using some form of, either you're using public finance, either you're using public finance specifically, or you're using some form of co-production model whereby you're having multiple parties come together to be able to produce your content. Again, I always hate to sound like a Debbie Downer because when you look at all the possible funding models that are out there, many times it seems like on the continent it's a bit of a disadvantage. But notwithstanding, there's still a way to make it happen. When it comes to co-production, yes, then we don't have a lot of treaties. A few countries on the continent do, like South Africa and less and more ahead than others, than Nigeria, for example. But still, there's still ways that things can be done. It's again about you thinking outside the box and thinking more ingenious in how you can work around some of the challenges that are currently out there. So if you're going for the co-production model, how are you able to attract the partners that you need to be able to come together on your project and be able to make that happen? And then what are the steps you're going to take to be able to ensure that you're protecting and safeguarding your IP and you're ensuring that you're able to produce what you say you can, and you're able to, more importantly, put together a team that can deliver on the promises that you've made on this project. I'll talk a bit about the SMIDS model. For us, again, I said that earlier, we use both. And one of the reasons why we do is, keyword for me is sustainability. So we have a team of 20, and every single month, my responsibility is to ensure that we keep the lights of the studio on. We ensure that everyone is well paid, and ensure that we're able to sustainably do that every single month. And because of that, service work provides us that opportunity. We're able to do projects for clients in and around the continent and even outside. We now currently are working on a project for a US client. And we're ensuring that we're able to deliver excellently and every single time up the game So that's going on one side. So our service work is going on one side. But at the same time, we have all these original ideas that are more long-term. And we're thinking, how do we ensure that these stories that we want to tell, we're able to find the most effective ways to tell them? So it might be short film going to festival like Hadu. It might be mini bite-sized content that is going on YouTube. We know that that's something that is within our control that we can do. And once we start to see tractions on those platforms, we're now able to move to the next level, which is producing a full series, 11 minutes, 52 episodes is a lot. And the budget for that is also low. When we even mention the numbers, even particularly in a climate like Nigeria, people open their mouth and they think we're joking because these are not numbers that are common. If you vis-a-vis Nollywood and even down to budget, down to timelines. So animation timelines are longer. We're talking 18 to 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. And the budgets are almost 4 or 5 times in the budget of a standard Nollywood production. So because of that, we have to think differently on how we source financing, on how we figure out our business models, which is key. No one is going to just dash us opportunities because we say, oh, we must make animated content. We have to think strategically about what kind of partnerships are best for us per time and how we are able to implement the strategies that we need to ensure that we get our product to market. So the key is how do you get your product to market the most effective and cost-effective way possible. And that's some of the things that we're currently working on. So building a business mindset, that's key. I can take myself as an example. I'm constantly in flux. Like there's two sides of me constantly fighting, the artist side and the business side. But again, for right now, I'm always figuring out what per day is, what does my studio need me to be? What does SMIDS need me to be for that day? If SMIDS needs me to wear my entrepreneurial hat, that hat is one like tight. If it needs me to be an artist, I'm an artist. So when it comes to writing projects, I know where my strengths are. When it comes to creating ideas, writing, and like my strength, and I take out those days to ensure that sometimes late in the night I'm up. Sleep. I sometimes ask myself that what is sleep. I'm up late into the night, 2 to 4. This is at the best time. I'm a morning person. My brain is fresh. I'm able to sit down, just pen down ideas, write down stories, write down plot and lights, which is key. Also, I remember a year ago or so, I just felt I needed to do more creatively. I felt that creative fire just burning on the inside of me, and I started painting. So I paint now in acrylic. So yes, there's always going to be that tussle, but at the same time, at the end of the day, what SMIDS needs to be the most is a producer to ensure that we're able to ensure that we're bringing projects from idea to delivery. And every single day I'm figuring out what's the best way to ensure that we're able to do that, to bring our projects from idea to delivery. How we're ensuring that we have the right pipeline of projects. How do we ensure that we have the right pipeline of clients to ensure sustainability? Because that's the keyword. Keyword is sustainability. How do we ensure that we can still do this tomorrow? How do we ensure that tomorrow our lights are on? How do we ensure that we have cash flow and the runway to ensure that we can do the things? We have 1,000,001 ideas and 1,000,001 passions that we want to bring to life, but without a proper business pipeline, a proper cash flow, it's very hard for you to be able to sustain creative endeavor. So that's always the key at the back of our minds. How we thinking longevity, how we thinking sustainability. Those are the key things for us. So many creative businesses fail because of lack of structure and pricing and constructs. I'll dwell a bit on structure because structure is key. If you're doing something solo, one man, just you, you're a freelancer, you have just a small, just you, once in a while you gather, put together, it's easy for you to slide, without effective structure. But if you truly want to scale and go beyond just being an individual solo artist into a business, into a company, and have a team, a consistent team that you're paying, you cannot do that without structure. And structure comes in all forms, and they are all stages of structure. So again, when it comes to structure and business for creatives, I say take it one day at a time. Take it one step at a time. You can't have everything all at once. Depending on the phase of your business, you're doing something different. I remember at the beginning stage, we're figuring out our accounting systems, and then we got that right. We got our accountant, we got ourselves right with the taxman and all that. So that was a phase. After that phase, we were now working on our own internal, structures and policies. When we were moving, we used to do commercials, adverts, so which were like what 1 minute max project. You can jammer a production of 1 minute. So there'll be problems, there'll be issues, but at the end, the project will be out at the other side. But if you're doing a series, which we are currently doing 2 series back to back, we have our own IP Keko that we're currently working on, which is on pause now. We also have a client project, it's also a series as well too. You cannot jammer. You have to have proper production structure. So animation is a pipeline, and you have to ensure that that pipeline is pipelining. You have to ensure that you're at every single stage, you know what needs to be happening, and you're ensuring that you're manning each of those points, and you just have that your production pipeline tight to the point, to the T, like down to what everybody needs to be doing per week, per day, per hour. We have that down. So that took a while for us to do to this point. Took a lot of managers to ensure that, okay, we had people at each point manning what they needed to be manning, and then constant tweaking until we got to the production pipeline that we currently have now. So that's key. Because you are, again, animation is more like an assembly line. If this was a water factory, you just can't do things as you please. There's a step, there's a point where you're purifying the water, there's a point where you're bottling the water, there's a point where you're packaging it, there's a point where you're stacking it up, and there's a point where you're shipping and delivering it. And if you miss any of those steps, there are issues, and that's when you start to have errors in production, and those errors cost money, those errors cost time, and at the end of the day, you're eating into your profit, you're eating into your margin, and then how do you build that sustainability that you want? So at each stage, you're constantly building structure. I mentioned accounting structure, I mentioned production structure. And then again, you still start digging even deeper and deeper. You're now going into HR policies. Right now, we're currently setting up a board right now. So that's a different ball game, entirely to structure the company for that next phase. So as an entrepreneur, what I would just say is, think about the phase that you're in now, and every phase requires something different. If you're just starting out, and if you're starting out right now, you're in survival mode. So the most important thing is, how do you get revenues in? So you should be more focused on your sales, your marketing, how you're getting in clients, how you're managing clients. Those are the structures and systems that you should set up. Once you have the structures and systems set up for, getting in jobs, getting your jobs out, getting paid, you have your invoicing structure, you have your accounting structure set up, that's great. Then you're moving to the next phase of growth. I think you're moving to a growth phase. There's a certain level of structures that you require for a studio to ensure that you're moving into that phase. So maybe you're thinking about some of your IPs, wanting to do a feature film, wanting to do a series, wanting to do this, wanting to do that. Then you need another set of, structures to be able to get you to that next level. Then you're from the growth stage, you're going to expansion, and maybe you're moving into new markets, new territories, and things like that. At that point, again, you need another set of structures. So without structure, it's impossible for you to run a business. It's impossible for you to run a business that scales. So it's important that at each stage you're thinking about, I'm just learning. Like right now, I'm on 3 different business courses. I was telling someone on my team, like, I don't know how I go myself here, but I'm running 3 different business courses currently, which is separate from all my daily tasks, which is separate from everything. But I need to do those courses because of the next phase of the business. I'm already thinking ahead that, okay, this is where we need to be by so and so. These are the things I lack. I know what the things I lack because, number one, I never had a corporate job. So I literally started SMIDS immediately after school. So there's a lot of gaps in things that I know I do not know. So it's important for me to fill up those knowledge gaps. I'm constantly reading business books, reading books on my industry, and figuring out what is going on within the industry. But at the same time, always figuring out, I know the areas where I'm constantly lacking because I'm a creative. So I have to fill up those gaps because I do not have anyone on that team. That majority of our team actually are all creatives. I just have maybe just one person that isn't a creative, and we're changing that this year to ensure that we bring in more like business development team members, sales and marketing, and all that has always been me. So it's how do you expand to ensure that you're filling in the gaps of the areas that you don't have expertise in. But more importantly is understanding that structure, because without that structure, it's impossible for you to scale, it's impossible for you to grow. So foundational systems, every creative business needs that. Pricing your work properly, key contracts and legal. We're in an IP business, all we're selling is IP. That's literally it. So me and your lawyer needs to be like best of buddies. Like me and my lawyer were like thick as thieves. It's important because that's what you're selling. It's your creative, your intellectual property. That's what you're selling. You don't have like a physical product or something. Maybe you can get that, after you already established an IP, then you can have merchandising. But without protecting, the IP, you cannot even get to merchandising. So it's important that you have your IPs, protected, simple production and delivery pipelines. I talked about that. So ensuring that wherever you are, you're figuring out what that pipeline is, what that production pipeline is, and you're constantly fine-tuning based on the stage that you are in. So it's important that you start shifting from doing everything yourself, which is sometimes when we start out as artists, whether you're a freelancer, you're doing every single thing from beginning to the end of the production, which is great, to moving into building teams and structures if you want to scale, the business in that way. Capacity building and next generation, which is key. I think for us, I'll just share a bit about SMIDS story. I think the way we built up teams has actually been through capacity building. And we do lots of capacity building trainings throughout the year, from the ones for very young kids to internship programs for students in the university. So after NYC, we have a program for people who graduate from NYC as well. So at different stages, we're constantly having different programs. And I think, particularly because of the way our industry is structured right now, if we want to hire 6 animators for a period that we foresee, we're starting in 2 months. We cannot just put out a call and say 6 animators. In fact, we've done that a few times, in the last 3 months. And more than 90% of the applications on our form, on our Google Doc, are from India and other countries. You really find, people from, within the country actually applying. And that's because it's just not that many talents out there. And the reason why is because there's not that educational pool that is turning out talent, which we still need to fix before we can actually scale our industry. So because of that, we always have to reverse integrate. So many times, if we're thinking about an expansion, we have to think almost 6 months, sometimes a year ahead, and say, okay, we know we want to be doing this. Because of that, we need to hire 6 interns now who know nothing about animation. Maybe they might have art skills, maybe they have computer skills, maybe study computer science, or any adjacent skill. And then we now have to upskill them to learn animation before they can now, and we're paying them all this while they're learning, before they can now actually join our production. So that's the burden that the industry has to bear, which we hope that very soon we will no longer have to bear. But that's what we've had to do. Internship is a big part of our program. Before internship, we used to have an academy that used to run, I think we started every quarter. I think it was even first once a year, then twice a year, then every quarter, then it became every month. But then the academy started to take away from production time. So we had to pause the academy and then started this internship program. And since started the internship program, it's been great. Yes, there are challenges here and there, but having that pool of talent to be able to draw in when you have production is key, who are ready and to go. So internship is key. Beyond just the internship program that we run, we also have an initiative called She Animates Africa, where we go to universities and we do a 1-day workshop. And the reason why I started it was because I just got tired of people always saying there are no many women in animation, there are no many women in animation. Now things have changed, there are now more women. I think it is only a time in our studio, there were about 60% women in the studio, like in production roles, like artists, animators, and the likes. And that's because it was a deliberate effort by us to literally go out and look for women into that space. And I can tell you firsthand, this is not we're in Women's Month, so I can say what I want to say is Women's Month. This is not bias or anything. That there was a time when I was the only female on the team, and there was a time when we had 60% women, and now we are now balanced out, maybe 50, or let's say 60-40. It varies depending on the team that we have per time, but representation of women is key for us. And I can tell you that more diverse teams produce better. Like that one is for fact. Like I can take that one to the bank any day. More diverse teams just produce better, and it's statistically backed. It's not just what I'm saying, not just my personal experience. The statistics, out there, you can go and research on it, on the fact that not just diversity in gender, diversity in every other area actually creates better productive teams. And I've seen it firsthand, at SMIDS, that when we have a more diverse team, we actually work more effectively and more productive. So it's key for as part of your strategy as you're growing and building your team, that you also think about diversity in building your businesses and studios. So yes, investing in people, which is key. I mentioned that through our internship programs. Mentorship is also key. I did a bit of mentorship in the past. I'm looking to do even much more this year. I know I took a break from it because I ended to focus. The industry was dying, but we're back. We're good. We're good now. So yes, I want to do more mentorship and just reaching out and just helping people. Because again, I've gone through a lot. Starting the studio and to where we are now. So it's just a time to just really give back and just help people, who are trying to navigate in the space as well. Also, young women, I talked about that, very passionate about getting more women in creative spaces and also in animation generally. I think for me, it's learning the business side early for any creative, not just young women, emerging creatives. Learning that business side early is very key. And particularly if you're the one running the studio, you're the key man running the studio, you have to just learn the business side. You can't really run away from it. You just have to figure out what is the value chain of the business I'm currently running. How do I make money? How do I earn? How do I ensure that this is sustainable? And you have to always be on that. Like you also have to be in that mindset whereby you're constantly checking the business metrics, you're constantly checking opportunities, and just being a step ahead, which is very key. Finding mentors and communities, that's very key. Yes, within the animation space for me, when I was starting out, there were not a lot of mentors I could, in fact, there's hardly any studio that is older than 15 years in the industry. So there was clearly no mentor for me to, look up to. But outside of the animation industry, that's something I did. I reached out to a lot of, particularly women in businesses, in other fields, other sectors, and just to learn from, some of the things that they are doing and how they're also leading their businesses as students. And I learned a lot, and just build communities outside of the industry and just figure out what they were also doing at the time. And that was really good. I think relying on that, until today, those communities still are the ones, edging me on and even helping me to even dream bigger, because I'm like, things that some people like, particularly the women in my circle, are doing in their various businesses in other fields and other sectors, in event planning, in interior design, and last I'm like, oh, you did that? That was a revenue last year. Are you serious? I wasn't playing. So they're keeping me on my toes to ensure that, I'm also, expanding and building, my capacity also within my space as well. And yeah, don't wait for permission to lead. Just go out there. The opportunities are out there. Just ensure that you're able to just take them on. It's about the courage to just go out and just do. So in closing, mindset shift. I think these are key for any artist who's trying to move from that artist mindset to an entrepreneurial mindset, is moving from passion projects. Passion projects are great. I have lots. Like I'm currently in my home studio, and I have lots of paintings that are unfinished. So I do have passion projects and areas for you to express your passion, which is great. But if you're building a business, you're building a legacy, you're building something that lasts, you have to start to think about IP. Like you have to start thinking about how does this make money? How can I convert this? What are the avenues? You have to be able to see that line from the idea to revenue. You have to see it clearly and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to produce it. This is what partners I need to make with it. And this is how it's going to make revenue. This is how I'm going to distribute it, which is the key for us in our industry, is distribution. How are you distributing whatever it is that you're currently creating? And move from being busy to creating value. That is key. That line alone can be on someone. Move from being busy to actually creating value. Because I remember there were times in our studio where we're just busy. We're busy doing nothing. Do you get? But we had to sit down within ourselves and say, and is that thinking of that mindset shift of you saying that, start with that value in mind, start with that end goal in mind, that this is where I see this project going. These are the partners, these are the keys that I'm going to use to be able to get there. And how am I going to, create that line, towards that? Once you do that, you move from just being constant. I remember then we had like almost 5 or 6 different IPs that we're working on. We'd all be doing touch on all those IPs, but nothing was going out. Nothing was going out. So, but by the time you move to creating value and thinking about the value creation and ensuring that you're thinking about the end in mind, then it shifts your thinking. So you're not thinking about just constantly touching, making it perfect. And as artists, we can do that. We can be on a project just trying to perfect. Sometimes I look at some of our folders of projects that we never release, and I'm like, why didn't we? Now we can't release it now because skill wise, talent wise, we've gone beyond that. But I'm like, why didn't we release this project ever? And that's because we're just trying to, perfection over progress. We're just like, it has to be perfect, which is not a bad thing to want to make something perfect. But sometimes you have to learn while failing. You have to put it out there. Let people laugh if they are going to laugh. And then from there, you pick up lessons. Supposed to never sharing your project, or never, ensuring that you're making your project actually go through the value chain that it needs to go to. So that's key. Next is find your from doing everything yourself to building systems, which is key. They just know how you can build a sustainable business without systems. So ensuring that you're figuring out what are the systems, the key systems that you need, what are those key success drivers within your business, and ensuring that you have key people. I call them generals in my business, like generals at SMIDS. They're those generals who are managing those key pillars of the business, and ensuring that you have competent people, you're constantly investing in training, constantly investing in them to ensure that they are bringing out their best, which is key. And then 4 is moving from selling your work to licensing rights. Even we haven't gotten there yet. We're on our way. We're on our way to that part. We're still selling a lot of our work. We're selling our skills. We're selling our services and the likes. But then we want to move to the point where we're licensing our rights, and that's the next level to ensuring that we're able to build. That's where legacy starts. Whereby beyond just this one, you actually have a value chain. You have an IP. That's when you're talking about the 360 degrees of an IP. Whereby this one IP, it can be a film, it can be a book, it can be merchandising, it can be a game, it can be. So we're talking about the 360 of that one IP. So we haven't gotten there, but I think maybe with Hadu, we're on our way. Because right now, Hadu started as a short film. It's currently about to become a series. Even Keko started as a book, and now it's also a YouTube show. So we're on our journey. We just not gotten there yet, but we started, which is great. And lastly, is short-term survival to long-term vision, which is key. Many times as artists, as creatives, we're just constantly thinking of that daily bread, like, let me just hustle, do this, one-off gigs here and there just to ensure that, we have that daily bread for today, which is great. We need that. Like, I talked about the fact that we are doing the combination of two. So our service work is our daily bread. But then also keep thinking that long-term vision in mind. For us, for SMIDS, the long-term vision is how do we solve for kids' content on the continent? How do we ensure that when we turn on our TVs, devices, tablets, wherever we get our entertainment from, that kids around the continent get their entertainment from, that they're able to see content that we produce. So it's constantly what we're solving for, like how can we figure out distribution of content for kids? And every single day that keeps me up at night, like how do we figure out what's going to be the best way? Is it social media? Is it digital? What is it? Is it partnership with broadcasters? What is going to be that way? Because we need to tell our stories. I think it's about time we start to tell our stories. And it's not because of the lack of stories. We have an abundance of stories. They just need to be told. We just need to find the best mechanism and engine for us to solve and tell those stories. I think the last slide is, success is not just visibility. Visibility is great. I still have people in my DMs today. Even my team members still asked me last week, when are we posting how do on YouTube? When are we posting how do on YouTube? Visibility is it. Having a million views on your IP is fantastic, is great. But sustainability is key. How do you ensure that you turn that 1 million views on your IP into a sustainable business is key. And you cannot do that without systems, without structure. That's the only way. So the role of African creatives is to shape culture and also shape the economy. That's the point everyone is loaded. Like when it comes to creative, and something I chat creatives always, that's and I think for me, I won't say this was an original idea. I learned this by watching a TED talk by Chimamanda many years ago. I can't remember how many years ago that this was, when she talked about the danger of a single story. And for me, we've seen the power of media even to today. Like right now, you turn on your news, your radio, whatever. The power of media is playing in the narratives that we hear and we see. How do we ensure that as Africans we're able to shape the narrative, and we have that power, we have that tool to shape the narrative for the next generation? How do we ensure that the Africa that our children, the next generation grow up in is better, is by the stories and the narratives that we tell now. So we have to be intentional, we have to be deliberate about what we tell and what we put out there. I think that's a big, like to the point that at the studio, people call that my agenda. And it truly is my agenda to ensure that we're very conscious about the narrative that we're putting out there about the continent and about our country, which is key. So I encourage us, let's take ownership, let's be intentional, and let's monetize wisely. It's key. Creative freedom is not the absence of money. It's not. It is the result of understanding value, which is key. I believe that you can't even have creative value except, you have that financial freedom. When you have that financial freedom to create as you will, and that's because you're thinking about sustainability in mind, you can truly succeed. I'm looking forward to everyone, building amazing legacy businesses in the animation industry that can truly last the test of time and can tell stories that impact, that inspire, and move the next generation forward. Thanks so much for having me. I don't know if there are questions. I believe that will be the next slide. So my contacts are all there. I'm available on all social media platforms at Damilola Solesi, and you can also follow SMIDS at SMIDS Animation platforms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dami. Thank you. Very, very apt, very on point. I hope you can hear me well. Very apt, very on point. Again, very focused on there. To have been nice for you to, again, I thought you were going to play one of your clips, right? Maybe a short one.
Okay. Oh, I think it was business. I came business.
But yeah, I thought we can always find it on YouTube. I'll just start with some of the questions again that are on my mind as we're sort of speaking. The first one is, I know you said SMIDS Studios is not yet there yet. I've just been thinking about how do you approach licensing rights, right? From that end, and just merging it with pricing models to think about as you are creative, right? So I know that sometimes you might have to do co-productions, you might have to do one-offs. Again, you are day one, you know nothing about how to negotiate, how to navigate this space. How do you think about monetizing, pricing your work, and maybe ultimately licensing rights?
Thanks so much for that question. That's very deep. Particularly for the animation industry, because there's not a lot, particularly even globally. So I want to say just Nigeria, but even globally, there's not a lot of transparency when it comes to cost and things like that. I was still in a meeting yesterday, and the speaker was talking about how varied production budgets can be. Like production budget can be anywhere from $2 million to $12 million to $30 million. And usually when they're mentioning these big numbers, I'm always looking at them like, we in Nigeria, we're not looking for much. We're not looking for much, but that's how varied. For the same 1 hour project, do you get, for the same 1 hour animated film, the budget can vary very, very differently. When it comes to even where we are here on the content and in Nigeria specifically, there's even very little transparency even among the industry and the ecosystem. What I would just advise any young person starting out is to understand what your costs are first. I think even me myself, I made the mistake when I started out, because I started out as a freelancer working from my parents' home, and a lot of costs that I did not account for, like the free lights I was enjoying, the free rent I was enjoying, and I was just pricing as I like. But you have to just sit down yourself and just do what are all the components that make up what it is that you're actually trying to produce. Every single thing that makes it up. Your time, you have to value your time. Sometimes we don't price in our time. You have to price in your time. If it's going to take you 30 hours to produce something, you have to charge for that time that you're putting into the work that you're going to do, and all the other assets and things that make up that price. Once you have that number, then you can now think about, okay, what is out there? What are people charging out there? Yes, some people undercharge. Some people would charge for the value that they see as their perceived value, their brand value, and the likes. But it's good for you to at least have that baseline of, okay, these are my costs, and that my costs are covered. So we start from there for some of the projects that you are trying to get as a freelancer, like gigs and things like that. Then when you're moving to the next phase, which is now you're trying to bring a project to life, then things now become even more complicated depending on what area you're going. If you're being if it's a product that is being absorbed by a major studio, so that's, they handle budgeting and all that. But if you're going the co-production route or even the self-funding route, like a few people have gone on things like Kickstarter to raise crowdfunding, or have partnered with different producers with funds in their different regions. You now have to figure out, sit down, and really, this is where the budget now really matters, because if you say it's going to cost you $800,000 to produce your project, then it's important that that number is not just something you picked out of fiction. It's something that you sat down line by line to say, what are all the items that's going to go into this budget to ensure that that can be made. And there's really nothing wrong with you partnering with a producer. I know that at least on the continent, there are a few producers out there now who are more open to partnering with creatives. It's going to come at a charge, clearly, but you know the value of your project. So you're able to say, okay, am I ready to partner with any of these producers? There are a few of them now on the content who offer production as a service. Having their expertise, because they've worked on multiple projects, they can guide you and advise you on, okay, this is what would be best. That's also one way to go. Another way to go is if you're doing self-financing. So it's something that you're doing, you're using your own time. Maybe you're starting a YouTube channel on your own. I would just say record as much of your expenses as possible, because you're the one putting in your time. The reason why I say so is I was just in a call like 2 weeks ago, and somebody was buying over a YouTube channel from a creator. And I was just thinking about that, and there were some questions I asked, this investor and the likes, and just to figure out how he was able to come up with the value for that particular IP. But I think, again, just coming out of that conversation, I think that documenting all your expenses as you're creating, even though you're in a way you're a solo creator, you're creating things on your own, but you're documenting all your expenses, it's better for you to be able to now figure out what that total valuation would be if you have an investor coming in this person's case, to be able to buy up the IP. So I think documentation is key. You really can't run away from it, as a creative, like particularly if you're running a creative business, you just have to be able to document your time, your finances, and all that. Then when it now comes to the last part, which is licensing, your rights, I think, again, that first point that I gave earlier about you having that lawyer as a friend, and it's great that last week we had a session with a lawyer, is very key. That from very beginning, yes, I know that IP, once it's created, is technically the IP belongs to you, but it's important that it's documented. We have copyright commission, we have trademarks. Yes, they are pricey, but it's an extra step you have to do for your IPs. And definitely talking with a lawyer, a legal person, not ChatGPT. Someone sent me a legal contract that was I knew it was ChatGPT. I don't look at the person. I said, I hope we don't see something in the future, but okay. But actually speaking to legal professionals to ensure that you have your legal basis covered. That's very key. That's very key.
Thank you so much. That was very detailed and covered all the different stages. Thank you so much, Devin. So I just spoke about ChatGPT now. So again, how do you today manage AI, piracy,
Okay.
things
I
that
said I
just
was going to escape. I said I was going to escape this presentation without discussing AI, but I can't.
because today you just
I
put the prompt
said,
and
look at my
the
side. Yeah, I know they did. Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. Said
I said today you just put in the prompts into these platforms and an entire production comes out, right? How
on
do
the
we,
other side,
right? How do we navigate this space as an animator coming in into the space?
okay, so what I AI definitely there's no creative, there's no animator who doesn't have AI on their mind 247 because it pushes us very heavily. I know that where do I start from? So there are two sides, there are two schools of thought. So there's the side of the artist whereby I know that many times most artists are very anti-AI, and I understand rightfully so, because of the ethics, around how this data is sourced and the fact that there's no compensation of some sort, for people who own this IP, which is one. So the second area is, which is what I always discuss with the team, is that there's the thing about technology, and technology is constantly moving. Now, are we personally at SMIDS using any form of AI within our pipeline? No, not currently, and that's because even some of the agreements that we're signing with our partners, producers and all that internationally clearly states no use of AI. So we are not using AI in any of our production currently. But we are keeping our eyes out and seeing what the tools are out there, what is going on, how the industry is evolving. And AI, surprisingly, is evolving very fast. Now, for me, what I tell artists is what AI is telling you right now is that you cannot be mediocre at the work that you do. You cannot do the barest minimum artwork or animation and then have it passable. It's better you spend that time on AI than putting all that effort of 6 weeks into producing something that is medical. So you have to upskill yourself and be excellent at what you do so that you're sort of at what you do. Secondly, is that for me personally, and even the conversation around AI, now animation is very monotonous. The reason why I would say a feature film will take 2 years, 3 years to produce is because of how monotonous it is to be able to produce animated content. And where I want the conversation around AI, once the buzz dies down a bit, is to come into the animation pipeline and see what are the areas that can be automated through AI that can truly help with production, skill. Again, technology is not new today to the animation space. If you take an example of a company like Disney that's been around for 100 years, when Walt Disney himself started, they were drawing animated projects were drawn on paper. That was how animation was done. It was paper and pencil. Eventually, it moved to digital animation, and then eventually from digital 2D animation, it moves to 3D animation. And now maybe AI is the next revolution. My only challenge for the way the conversation around AI has been so far has always had this very anti-artist approach, whereby we're going to replace your jobs conversation, which we want that rhetoric to come down a bit, which it already is in many ways, to now come into how can we come within the animation pipeline and what are the areas that can be automated to make. And I can right now almost 3 or 4 different use cases that I can come up with that AI can actually come within the pipeline and make things better. Do I ever see a future where myself personally or even SMIDS the studio would do a prompt to video? Definitely not. But within, again, those monotonous places within the pipeline, I want to go deep, but let's just leave it there. Monotonous places within the pipeline. Letting AI come within those spaces and say, how do we fill in those gaps within that production pipeline and ensure that we make the process more efficient, more cost efficient, more time efficient, but at the same time you're still giving the creative license to the artist to be able to create. So that's the best of both worlds that I see, whereby the artist is still in control. So it's not just a prompt to video whereby you don't know what the AI is going to do at the end with the video. Whereby even till today, we're still having consistency issues when it comes to character consistency, even within a 1-minute clip. But by ensuring that you're coming in and being a true tool to aid the artist, that way it's a different conversation, a different narrative. So that's how I see. That's my own perspective on AI. And when people keep asking me, say, am I going to build it? I don't know. I'm running the studio. I don't have time to start another AI company, but I can give the ideas to anyone.
Yes, I ask you, are you going to build something around that?
Not now. I need to solve for the problems in front of me first.
Thank you.
But I can give the ideas. I'm open to consulting. I'm open to discussing with anyone who's willing to like
give the small ownership stake there.
I don't mind, but I was willing to do it free. But see, now I should be thinking like an entrepreneur mindset.
Assets. Thank you so much. That was very again on point. We have two questions in the chat room, and then I think we'll just wrap it up. So this seems a bit personal. What sponsorships or affiliate deals fits my early stage, again, I guess, animation content? If you're just starting up, what kind of deals should they look at? What can they enjoy? And then what digital platforms best match animation and target audience?
Okay, target audience. Okay, I like the last part. That last part, target audience, answers all the other two questions actually. Is that same thing of starting with the end in mind? So as soon as you said sponsorship and affiliate, the first question I was going to ask you is who is your target audience? Even when you ask that what digital platform is, still again, who is your target audience? Because animation is broad. Many times people see animation as just kids, and even I focus on kids, but kids is not the end all and be all of animated content. There's adult animation, there's anime, there's all kinds of genre within the animation space. So it really depends on what you're creating and who you're creating for. So if you're creating for kids, I would say, and you want to start out, YouTube would definitely be the best digital platform for it, just because that's what the kids have access to. So Instagram and TikTok, well, kids are not supposed to be there because all those platforms are 13 and up. But parents, usually provide their devices for kids to watch content on YouTube, just the way we socialize right now and interact with digital technology. If you're targeting young adults, so you have like a young adult project, something in, I don't know, around politics, something around university life, like teenagers, Gen Z being Gen Z type thing, then in my head, that feels like you get your most traction, depending on the style of your video, maybe on TikTok. Depending on your subject and what you're talking about, Instagram might be the better platform for you. It just really depends on what you're saying, how you're saying it, and who you're saying it to. Will not be, because if it's more comedy leaning and likes, maybe TikTok is more for it. It's more polished and things like that. It might be Instagram. So it really depends on the content you're actually selling, the content of, as in the nature of the content you're actually producing, and who your target audience is. Lastly, you also talk about sponsorship and affiliate. Again, it's still that target audience. So if you're doing something more comedy, adult focused, I don't know, can there be some ties to betting? Not subscribing, betting companies or anything like that. But that sounds like something that that demographic, wants. Are they brands around that? Maybe alcoholic beverages, things like that, who are already spending in other areas. They're already advertising in other spaces, and they can be some kind of tie in with your particular IP. If you're doing for kids, definitely you're thinking more kid focused brands like, should I mention brands like Milos, things like that, Midos, things like that, things that are more kid focused. So those are the kind of brands they're approaching because of the nature of the content that you are selling. So it all comes down to your content and what you're producing. That will determine the kind of sponsors you can attract or choose to attract, and then the digital platform that you want to push your content.
Thank you so much, Dami. Yes, I agree with you. It always starts with the end in mind. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you for taking the time to join us this afternoon.
Thanks so much for having
me. Again, I'm sure if you drop this on YouTube, maybe Dami can help or Dami, can you take this question? Do you still have stress you a bit?
I'm good to see it.
Pushing music content, for example, how will I differentiate my style from competitors?
Okay, so pushing music content, are you referring to animated music content? So similar to what you see on YouTube for kids, nursery rhymes, things like that? Or are you talking about pure music, like, you're an artist and you're about to drop the next banger for us?
Like, are you able to clarify? Are you able to unmute?
Oh, you're an artist. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, I have limited experience in that, but I can share. I think So when it comes to the music that we listen to, we hear, there are two schools of thought. So there's the school of thought whereby you want to do what is popular, what is trendy, the Afro beats, the popular tunes and the likes, and try and, well, in my mind, I see that as a red ocean. Or you decide to be uniquely you, which is, I think, what you're saying, because you're saying, how do you differentiate your style from your competitors? And I think you can only do that by, so how I see myself as an artist is that I'm somebody, as an artist, I absorb. So as a creative, as an artist, what are you absorbing? So I will imagine that if you're somebody that wants to truly be unique and different, you cannot be listening to only the current sounds and trends of this era. You have to be somebody who's listening to jazz, who's listening to 50s music, 60s music. You're just filling up yourself with so much creatively that your own unique style would come out of an amalgamation of what your own personal interests are. And by the time we hear it, it would be a unique sound. So sometimes when you hear somebody, like, I won't say I'm the most indie, artist who listens to, trying to find, the next, big thing on Spotify or stuff like that. I'm not that. But sometimes when I hear some of those artists, I'm like, it's deep. It just sounds like this was somebody who truly loves music, who's truly I know that this talk, focus more about, the entrepreneurial side, but there's also the artistic side of as to what you want to build. And many times you have to be able to have depth. I don't know if you understand, in that particular skill. So in animation, for example, I'm somebody who, as I said, every single day I watch cartoons. So when it comes to depth of knowledge of the space, from the business side to even the artistic content, I consume a lot. So because of that, I know a lot. And from that abundance, I'm able to create from, I don't know if you get, so the same way too for your music career is that you have to just be somebody who is truly a fan of music, who truly is somebody who can sit down and just listen to records after record. Like I had a record player from my grandfather, even though I'm not DJ, but then you just listen to record after record, just really, really, really listening. And then you're consuming yourself with so much. And then from there, and then just read books. There are books around, creativity. I think the first one that comes to my mind is Still Like an Artist. There's also another one by this guy, the artist mind. His name is skipping my head, but he has this really long beard. He's one of the most celebrated musical producers. Rick Rubin, I think that's his name. Rick Rubin, yes. Thank you. Rick Rubin, that's the name. He wrote a book about the artistic mind. So read those kinds of books that talk about the fact that nothing is truly new, but it's more about your own unique lens on how you see things. So there's not going to be one thing. I'm not going to say mix rock and mix Afrobeat and then you come with a unique. That might be it. I don't know, but it has to come from all you have absorbed, and then from that you're able to synthesize it and then share that with the world honestly and authentically. And I think we live in a world now whereby if you do that and you share openly, you're visible, you're on TikTok, you're playing music. Like we have our sound engineer at the studio. He's always on TikTok live, like just playing music, just jamming up and just playing music. But you never know if from there he'll be discovered or something like that. So just keep, creating music, loving music, listening to music, creating music, and sharing that openly and honestly. And I feel like you find your sound, your true sound that is you, and then you also find your audience, the people who also want to listen to the music that you want to produce as well.
Thank you so much, Dami, for that. Just to recap, you said we should stay curious. We should think with the end in mind, right? Who are we targeting? Who are we selling this? Who are we building this for? And then that feeds into how we think about the rest of it. And of course, systems need to be in place. At the long run, we want to attract investors, or we want this to be a sustainable business that feeds our families or feeds generations. Yes, we have to think about systems in mind. Thank you so much, Dami. Really, 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 really appreciate you for taking the time this evening. Without, again, we're wrapping up already. And we have the last session for the week tomorrow. That session is focused on, if they're interested in fine arts, visual arts and crafts, you like the arts and crafts, that's for you next tomorrow. Same time, 4 p.m. We have Dr. Bolaji Ogunwo, visiting professor of arts at Missouri State University, join us, sharing the same thing, moving you from being a creative to an artpreneur in his words. So please don't miss that session as well. Next week is the money talk. We'll have a budget session and just helping you prepare for investors. So whether you're at day one today, think it just, again, it makes sense to have that knowledge at the back of your mind. So once the opportunity for investment comes, you're able to take those learnings. You're not walking in blank into those rooms. And then the last one will be on pitching. That will be March 19th. We have a group of people that we're excited about teaching you how to, or just share their experience as to how best to pitch and how to also move your brand from just being a Nigerian brand to being global. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate you. This is the QR code. Please scan and register for as many sessions as you can attend. Thank you again, Dami. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.